Today, I'm chatting with Brendan Gell. Along with his father, Rick, Brendan has been deeply involved in the RC community for decades. Together, they lead Advanced Radio, an Australian company renowned for developing cutting-edge electronic systems and accessories for RC planes. In our conversation, Brendan shares the story of how the company began, the challenges they've faced along the way, and offers an overview into their product line, including exclusive insights on their latest innovations set to hit the market soon. Brendan, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, Walt.
It's been a while since we met. I think we met at Jonol back in May. Had some great chats also with your dad. I know that you've been really busy with a lot of big events, a lot of travel all over the place. So glad we make it happen at the end.
Yeah. I think this is we scheduled this briefly back in May, and it's taken, what is it now, June, July, nearly the end of July before we could make it happen, just because the travel schedule was so crazy for us. For anyone who's been to Australia, it's a fair distance away, and since the Joe now, I've been back to Australia, over to the UK, back to Australia, and then about 12 and a half, 13-hour drive north in Australia, because it's a fairly big country. To a place called Inglewood, where we have one of our largest events. So now, thankfully, I'm back home for a few weeks and get to spend some time with the family and maybe get to fly down to the local field on the odd chance.
Yeah, you were in the UK. That was Weston Park.
Yep. We were at Weston Park for the weekend there. That's a brilliant show. It's very public and very family orientated. Obviously, great pilots, and it's a spectacle to watch. But the turnout is amazing with Weston Park. If you've been or if you're thinking of going, you drive in and it's similar to Joe now. It's this beautiful green paddocked area, and you look over and there's 350 different motorhomes and Winnebagos and that sort of thing, and they're all public. They turn up just to camp and see the show. And then as you get further down to the flight line, you get to the pilots, and everyone knows everyone, and everyone's welcoming. And it's really a great show. It's a really good atmosphere, very similar to Joe now, actually.
It looks really cool. I haven't had a chance to go there yet, but from the videos I've seen, chatting with different people, it seems like it's a pretty cool. It's like one of those big events in Europe that like we have to, like, anybody into RC has to go at some point in their life.
Yeah, definitely. It's just such a welcoming atmosphere, and you get to meet a lot of people who don't get to come over to the US side, but you get to see them online a lot. So it's definitely an event to put on the calendar if you can make it.
Well, taking a step back, maybe for those people that haven't gotten a chance to meet you yet, could you give a bit of an intro about yourself, how you got into the hobby?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Brendan. I'm a director here at Advanced Radio. We make RC electronic for pretty much 40 to 50C models up to 500cc models. We manufacture it all in Australia. So we do servos, gyros, power distribution systems, cables, pretty much everything from the receiver back, and we're vendor neutral. So we work with every radio brand, every combination and receiver out there. But how I personally got started, bit of a funny story actually. We had a local flying field that was just off the main highway, and we drove past it time and time again. And it was actually my dad, who was the founder of the company, Rick. He flew full-size models, let's say, like, Cessna 182, two-seater, four-seater, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Full, yeah. Anyway, we're driving along, and it just so happened that my older sister played a game called netball, and the netball fields that she played were about a kilometer, maybe half a kilometer away from the flying field. Anyway, we were there setting up, and Dad said, "Oh, there's planes flying over there. Maybe we'll just go have a look." And I think I was 6 at the time, 6 years old, and drove over there, and the rest is sort of history. He got hooked. He's always loved aviation, and growing up around it, I think I started flying when I was about 8 and a half. Came solo at 9, and then from going from a little OS 40 size trainer, Kyosho trainer, all the way up to flying iMac. I think I was about 10, 10 and a half, and then kept flying since then. Took a bit of a break around high school and got back in just after, and then got it stuck into the turbine stuff and gliders and DLG and scale. So pretty much if it flies forward, I've pretty much flown it.
Now that RC is a big part of your job, do you still have that enjoyment for going to field, getting some flying, or are you always on the hook for solving problems with people using AR products or questions?
Um, I still have the enjoyment of flying. I still love getting out there and flying. In fact, I've got two boys myself, an 11-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, and my joy is taking them down to the field and letting them have a twist of the sticks, which is very exciting. If you've ever had a 3.5-year-old fly RC, I get just as much enjoyment out of teaching them as I do flying myself. Um, when it comes to being at the local field, we've established a bit of a relationship where when we're there, unless it's absolutely critical, we're just there to fly and have fun and try and treat it like a hobby. So I still get the enjoyment out of it. I don't tend to make it to the field as often as I'd like anymore.
Makes
Whether
sense.
that's family, yeah, whether that's because of family and the local soccer game and things like that, or just general life, I still love flying.
Cool. Well, I have a 2-year-old girl and a 3.5-year-old girl, so I might have to ask you for some tips how to get them started.
Oh man, buy a simulator. I found when they're old enough to learn that their actions have consequences, they're old enough to jump on a simulator. And my recommendation is set them up with a plane that's relatively easy to fly. It's relatively big so they can see it, and just sit there with the space bar ready to reset because it lasts about 3 seconds.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I play a
Um,
little bit with them in the sim. I think the first challenge I found is that the transmitter itself feels a bit too big for their tiny hands.
Yeah, yeah, it's huge. It's huge. For my 11-year-old, he's pretty much got it down pat, and he's obviously big enough to handle the transmitter himself. For the 3-year-old, I'm still holding the sticks, and he holds the sticks on top of mine, and we
Hmm.
do it that way, just so make it a bit easier for him. But as I said, the plane only flies for about 3 to 5 seconds on the simulator
Yep.
before he has a big laugh and falls off because it's about how can I how can I make it crash spectacularly?
Yep. Yep. Same with mine. Well, let's talk a bit about advanced radio and Boomer. And actually, can you explain a bit the difference between Boomer RC and advanced radio?
Yes, certainly can. So Boomer RC was started in 2006 by my father, Rick. Um, Again, as planes got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm talking, from 40 size to 60 size and then up to gas models. Um, I, I don't know the exact timeline. I was still a bit young, but models started getting bigger and bigger, and 100cc models and 120cc models and 150cc models were starting to come out. And in Australia, they were big models, really big models. And a lot of people in the club were flying nickel metal hydrides into mechanical switches, which I know people still do today. Um, but with the size increase and the power increase and the amount of sky that they take up, Dad said, hey, there's got to be a better way, and started looking into different battery chemistries with the rise of lithium and different ways of switching them. And he does have an electronics background and a coding background as well, which I'm sure if we can get him on the cast, he'll be able to tell you all about, and he'd love to tell you all about. So he came up with a couple of switches and started making Life E batteries, I believe it was, just in the garage. And people said, "This is great. Where can I buy them?" And that's sort of how the ball started rolling. He developed a couple of different digital switches, one of them being the IntelliSwitch, uh, which was a dual battery redundant switch with a on-off button, and it had a little LCD screen built into the front of it, so you could actually see the capacity that was drawn out of each battery. And it was only the size of about that big, give or take. So relatively form factor and compact. And yeah, it sort of took off from there. From there, we went, Boomer RC started. It started just as a local business for the local club. I think he posted up about, hey, we've released this new switch on RC Groups and Flying Giants. And the US picked it up, and he'd come home from his day job, which was working in medical imaging at the time, running a team of programmers. So he does have a programming background. And on the weekends, he'd be making switches. And from there, the product range grew. We went from there to battery charger, the iCharger, which was a micro-sized all-in-one, could charge 3 batteries at once, 2S batteries, which we still get asked for today. The IntelliMatch system, we were the first to come out with a system that would automatically match servos together if they were joined on a wing. Again, as models were getting bigger and you had, say, a Comp Arf model or a larger size model where you've got 2 gang servos or 3 gang servos, we released a product that you would actually plug those servos in, you'd teach the endpoints, and then you could automatically match them as well. From there, it went into power distribution systems, and then eventually gyros, which is one of our most recent successes has been our Smooth Flight product as well. But that's how Boomer RC started. Boomer RC as Boomer as in the kangaroo, and RC obviously as in radio controlled.
What about advanced radio? How does that is advanced radio and Boom RC basically referring to the same company, or is there a distinction there?
Advanced radio is, you probably won't find much branded Boomer RC anymore. You'll see it branded Advanced Radio, which I don't know if many people are familiar with, the big AR, the green AR. Advanced Radio is the manufacturing arm. So we have Smooth Flights and Extremes and batteries, and they're all AR branded. Boomer RC is the retail store. So Boomer RC can sell products from Advanced Radio. They can also sell products from DLE, GP, models as well. It's more for the local market, whereas Advanced Radio is purely the manufacturing side of it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Rick's just chimed in and said, Boomer RC is Horizon Hobby, and Advanced Radio is like Spectrum. Spectrum makes Spectrum radios and receivers, and Horizon Hobby obviously sells those, but they also sell their eFlight brand and Traxxas and things like that as well. So
cool. That makes a lot of sense. What were the main challenges when getting the company started? And I imagine that there was a big ramp up from the first couple of units to some local guys to the company like them to grow, and the product line getting bigger and more complicated, more complex projects and products. What would say were the trickiest parts of getting that going?
To be honest, keeping it in Australia. It's been being an Australian business, and seeing over the years, we had a lot of Australian manufacturers, like the Bonds brand used to be manufactured in Australia, which was an underwear brand. It was made in Australia. There was a lot of companies that were manufactured, like the raw materials were manufactured in Australia. We had a couple of car companies until about 6 or 7 years ago that were manufacturing cars in Australia. And Australia is a beautiful country, but the cost of manufacturing in Australia has become a lot higher. Getting people to employees to make things to specification and wages and things like that. In terms of scaling up for the global market, the hardest part's been keeping it in Australia and employing locals. It would be really easy to offshore all that stuff, but as part of our business model, we are keeping it local as much as possible. We think that Australia as a country, we're able to innovate and produce great things, and we should be trying to push more towards that instead of offshoring it to China or to Taiwan or another country. Another difficulty is the fact that Australia, as I said, is a beautiful country, but it's very far away from everything. When we go to events to sort of promote our product, not so much on the manufacturing, it's at least a 12-hour flight to get anywhere to the Northern Hemisphere. So promotion is a big thing for us, but it does take a lot of time to get to different places around the world where we see the bigger markets being.
Yeah, it's always challenging with anything. I think with RC, typical challenge is that ideally you're bringing planes and other things, where you have to, even if you don't bring planes, I think nowadays with so many projects, you probably have to bring a good amount of staff to showcase at the events, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
probably not very
yeah.
fun.
Oh, hey, we have we've done it for that many years. I think it's come on since 2018 was our first major push overseas. Was to Florida Jets, believe it or not. When Frank Tiana was still around and he was still organizing those events. That since then, because we've been doing it for so long, we have flags and banners and a traps case with display boards, and I think you've seen some of those display boards that we bring to our
Mhm.
shows. So that case pretty much lives 6 months of the year in the dark, and the next 6 months we bring it out and it travels all over the world, and we put it back into storage.
No,
So
you
we're
guys
sort
do a
of
really, really good job. At Journal, for example, it was a really um, good place to see how different vendors, how different companies showcase their products. And for most part, everybody has just their product right there. And you guys had like all these displays set up so that you can actually test the product, see how it would behave in an actual plane, right? Like everything connected to servos, and you can actually try some programming. I thought that was really cool. It's a really good way um, to get new customers to buy into the product, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think if it's one thing to see it on a board or see it on a table, but to be able to pick it up and we say touchy-feely experience, move it around and see and go, oh, do I like this or would I prefer it that way or can it do this and have the actual live demonstration there. I think that does help us uh, to get the product into the market and into new people's hands, as you said. I also think it helps that, being the designer or part designer of the products, we have a wealth of knowledge that we can impart on people as well. um,
Yeah, I've been very impressed since I learned about AR a couple of years ago. I've been very impressed, and I think initially I was very impressed about the product line, like the number of products, the quality of the products, and then as I learned more about you guys, and I realized that it's a family owned business, it feels like a very different vibe from other RC electronics companies. When you look at the Futabas, the JRs, they seem to be coming from like big companies that are doing a lot of other things in RC. One of them happens to be like RC airplanes, but you don't really get any face-to-face time with uh, designers, engineers of the company, and at the same time, you don't get the impression that a lot of the people working on those products fly themselves. So many times, certain decisions don't seem to make a lot of sense for the average pilot because the people that making those decisions might not have been in the same shoes as you as a pilot, right? And I think
yeah,
what's cool about you guys that it seems like you are the users, right? Like you are exactly on the same position as the end customer, and I think that gives you a really big advantage in terms of how to design
yeah.
things, how to test things.
Well, I agree with you 100%. Every one of the products that we've designed and tested and then ultimately released has come out of necessity. An example is we have a product, I don't have one on me, but it's called a Q switch. And
Mhm.
when we started getting into turbines, we had the turbines set up on a test stand, and we were also testing, we had a receiver plugged in, and we were testing dual batteries into the receiver and then a third battery for a turbine. And then we were looking at implementing a lighting system in this model, so we had to have 4 batteries. And the complexity of it just on our test bench was um, really high. And what we saw is, okay, hang on, this connection goes to here and this plug goes to here. And I think what happened is we'd run up the turbine and we'd done the testing and we'd unplugged all of the batteries, or what we thought all the batteries, and walked away. And I think we got a bite to eat and sort of went, whew, wow, first turbine, that's amazing. Um, Next time we might wear earmuffs and hearing protection because they're very loud and we didn't realize.
Yeah.
And we came back and went, oh, we've left one of the batteries connected. And Dad said, oh, what if we designed a switch? Because we already had a switch where you could switch off two batteries. So what if we designed a switch where you could switch four batteries? You'd have battery sharing on two, so for your receiver, so you know you've got battery redundancy. You've got a third battery for your turbine, and you've got a fourth battery for your lights or for your retracts or whatever. But it's all controlled by one actuator, one on off.
Hmm.
And from there, we made the design, the PCB design, implemented it, and we're still I think that was better part of 6, 7 years ago now, and we're still making that and selling that in its original form today. We call it a Q switch because we had to switch four batteries on and off, and we just wanted some simple way of doing that. So all of our products, we come up with an idea, I guess. We design a prototype and go, okay, is this going to be useful in the market? If I'm building a model, what do I want this to do? And if it does that, great. If it doesn't, then we don't sort of put it in. We don't implement it. We don't make it. I guess by being modelers ourselves, we tend to have that bit of insight. And at least I hope we implement that into our more complex products as well. An example would be a lot of our expanders come with a screen, a touchscreen display, and that's used for programming. And when we first look at designing the product, we thought we had all these ideas of, okay, what if we can do this? What if we can do that? And, what if we can make it self-level? I said, we were having a discussion. I said, what about the end user wants to be able to take this out of a box? Imagine they're literally throwing it at the plane, and in an almost transformer style, it installs itself. So how do we get that across to the end user? So they literally pick it out of the box, they screw it down, they plug everything in, they hit a button and they go, and it automatically does it for them. And that's been part of our design brief for our products. So as I said, I guess being modelers ourselves with a few years of experience, it does help to have that sort of insight.
Yeah, definitely does, and I think it's not only for the design side of things, but also once you start testing and releasing and you iterate and improve. I think that feedback loop has to be much faster than pretty much most other companies. I think maybe Spectrum is the only other company I can think of that has a lot of like people pretty embedded into they're hobbyists, and they work on the products.
Yep.
But most other companies seem to have like a big disconnect between engineering, design, and the end customer. And sometimes it shows. Sometimes they release products or features that are not very user friendly, or they don't seem to make a lot of sense in some ways.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand. Well, you're looking at not only one of the designers, or Rick and myself, pretty much the designers of all the products, but also the alpha tester. So nothing goes out unless it's been tested in one of our models. And that can be, a 2.6 meter krill or a turbine model. Whenever we think the application is going to be used, mostly that's where we tend to test the product. And once we're happy with it, then we'll go through the beta testing and go, okay, well, we've got a range of sponsored pilots out there and testers that we can send this product to and get their feedback. And 90% of the time, the feedback is, yeah, love it. Can I have another one? So I think we've done a good job.
How long? I'm sure this is gonna depend a lot on the particular project, but how long does the average new project take from ideation to prototyping, testing, to actually is now in the hands of the end customer?
For a less complex product, let's say it doesn't require any software, the development cycle could be, as little as 3 months. That gives us time to do a sample or a development board, make sure everything's going how we want it, do a first revision, make sure that we have a case design done if we're going to put it in a case, get the packaging correct, and then obviously test and go to the end customer. If it's a very simple circuit, 3 months. If it requires coding, it could be up to 12 months. And if it requires, you know, it depends on the complexity of the product. Um, if you have a product like our Smooth Flight system, that was originally released in 2017 in the ARXL, I believe it was. Um, that was that was in that was in development for about 4 years before we actually released it to the public. And
Wow.
that's because the complexity of the product was so high. We're talking first 26 channel expander with integrated gyro. It had a built-in triple sequencer, so 3 separate sequences, a color touchscreen display, and it all had to work seamlessly together with all the different radio brands at the time, which were, Spectrum, JR Futaba, um, you name a Jetty is in there as well. And each one of those connection points took a lot of time to make sure it was robust before we sent it out to the customer.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that kind of product. There's a lot going on in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's the more features you add to the product, it's like adding another layer to the cake. And each time you add another layer, you've got to shore up the base and make the base bigger. And eventually you end up with this base that's absolutely huge and this tower that's massive, and trying to add another layer means, yeah, the more complex the product, the longer the development time.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's a process. I'll say that much.
Well, it seems like with Smooth Flight, it definitely worked out because I've been seeing a lot of people pretty happy with Smooth Flight. I think that it's become pretty popular, especially in the turbine community, right? Um, Turbines, I think most people use some form of gyro. The other one I've seen fairly popular these days has been Cortex Pro.
Mhm.
But when looking at the specs of both Smooth Flight and Cortex Pro, they are, other than the fact that they have a gyro, they have actually pretty different specs and pretty different kind of mindsets. Can you talk a bit about Smooth Flight, how it compares to the average gyro that other people might be more used to?
Yeah, yeah, certainly. So for anyone who isn't familiar with the product, Smooth Flight is a product name. It comes in 2 variations currently. One which is our 16 channel expander. I don't have one here. I should have had one, but 16 channels, dual battery input, comes with a color touch screen, is compatible serial protocol connection to all the major radio brands. And the design of it was, we needed a product that had an integrated gyro system, that was relatively form factor and had enough channels that you could fly nearly any model with. So you're talking most turbine models use up to about 12 channels, 12 to 14 channels. And we thought, well, let's make our 16 because having more is usually better. Then we go up to our next level of product, which is our ARXL product, which is our top of the range. And that's integrated gyro, 26 servo outputs, dual receiver, dual battery redundant, touchscreen, built-in sequences. It's pretty much, if you wanted to put that in the heart of any model, there's not really many models I can think of or have seen where you couldn't fly with something as sophisticated as that. But the design philosophy behind it was twofold. Again, one, we wanted to make the product simple to use. And if you ever had one of our Smooth Flight products and you look at the way the menus on the color touch screen are set out, they're set out almost sequentially. So bind up your receivers, connect up your receivers, go into your power, set your batteries, go into your IO routing page, do your channel mapping, then go to your adjust page. You can adjust all your servos from there. Then once you're happy with that, you can fly the model without the gyro engaged. And then if you want to, you can go into the Smooth Flight page and actually, we have what we call a wizard system where it'll ask you certain questions like how heavy is the model, what type of model it is, how far your servos move, how you want to mount it. And based off the criteria that you answer, the gyro loads default values into the system for that particular model size and for that particular model type as well. because heavy models fly differently to lighter models. So you don't want to have the settings for a heavy model on a light model and vice versa. And it took us a lot of time to work through those sort of things. But the philosophy behind the smooth flight, the other part of the smooth flight philosophy was we want a system where you can, A, it does most of the stuff itself, and B, it should be almost transparent to the end user. And that's why we didn't call it a gyro, we called it smooth flight, because a gyro in our minds, or in a lot of people's minds, it flies the plane for you. And we didn't want that to be associated, because that's not really how our gyro system works. All it does is it smooths out the bumps. So when you're flying along, if you're flying in a windy day or in a day where the conditions aren't great, or you're halfway through your flight and the crosswind picks up, or you get a big gale force wind come through, you know that your plane's going to be relatively unaffected. And yeah, I think that's what we've succeeded at.
Yeah, and one thing that I thought was particularly interesting about the smooth flight system is, and something that sets it apart from, I believe, every other gear out there, is the automatic gain control, right? Like the typical thing I
Yep.
see and my own planes and other people is that, especially with a new plane, you obviously on the first flight you probably want to take off with the gear off, just in case there's something wrong. You don't want to have it so up right on takeoff. And then when you turn the gear on at a safe altitude, you usually start with a fairly low gain value to make sure that you are not um, using a gain so high that you end up with oscillations that can cause like pretty bad behaviors on the plane, right? And you always have to like be very mindful about like increasing it slowly. Maybe you think you have it right, but then one day you're flying a bit faster than the previous day, or there's a bit of headwind, and now you get into those oscillations unexpectedly, and that can be at the very least can just look bad. At worst, can potentially destroy your plane, right? And I believe that with smooth flight, you have some systems that help a lot there.
Yeah, yeah. We have what we call auto gain control, AGC for short, and it's a system in which the smooth flight will give you the maximum amount of gain for that situation for the model. That sounds a little bit complex when I say it like that, but what we do is we say, let's say you've set your gain to 50 points as you're in low gain, you're at 50 points. Okay. The plane's flying along and you may have seen it, or you may have seen someone else who's experienced it. The gain's too high. The plane starts to do this. Yep. Our system is running so incredibly fast, the IC built onto it, that it senses the start of an oscillation. It starts dialing the gain down. Once the oscillation stops, it'll start trying to push it back up again. So it's varying the gain dynamically for each axis independently, depending on how much your plane is moving through the sky, the headwind, if you've got a tailwind, everything. It's constantly giving you the maximum amount of gain right up to the point where you just start to see the oscillation, and just below that by a small margin. And the reason we decided to, just a bit of philosophy behind that is, or reason we decided to design it that way is, if you look at the way planes fly through the sky, there's multiple ways you can adjust gain automatically, you could say. One is GPS, and the other one is airspeed. Now, GPS measures relative ground speed. So if you're flying into a headwind that's 20, 30 knots, your speed is going to be different. Your airspeed is going to be different going this way as it will be going that way. Which means you should theoretically have different gain values based on where the model is. And airspeed is another one, which is a better part of true indicator. But setting up airspeed on 90% of the models is a pain in the backside, you could say.
Yeah.
And to set it up correctly and to get accurate results, it takes a lot of testing to do. And so we thought there's got to be a better solution. So what we did is we moved it into the system and said, well, the system it's got a gyro built in. It's going to sense that the plane has got too much gain. What if we make it automatic and dial the gain down for you? And that's how it came to be. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you have
certainly,
already the perfect sensor there to get the information you need.
yeah. And you're right. It certainly made the product very popular, we believe. again, going back to the philosophy of people want to be able to just install it in their plane, hit a button, and go fly. It all ties into that sort of philosophy as well.
Yep. And not only the smooth flight that is right now available, it's been pretty popular, but I believe you guys have been working on a new related product, right? That is not yet released.
Yes, yeah, it's not out yet. We're working on a new suite of products actually. We're working on a new, which has just been released, non-gyro version, which is called our new Extreme Pro. And then we're working on what we're calling a Smooth Flight Pro as well, which is going to be released in a 10-channel version to start with. And the design philosophy behind that will be even simpler than a Smooth Flight 16 or a Smooth Flight ARXL. It's a smaller unit all together. I do actually have one here. That's the size of it there. You believe that's 10 channels. Still dual receiver input, still programmed via the screen. But the design philosophy of this one, because it's 10 channels, is you'll have routing one-to-one from your radio. So whatever you do in the radio is whatever will show up here. And then the setup is as simple as pushing a button, moving your sticks, and you're good to go.
And then you have a separate screen, right?
Yes.
That you've connected.
Yeah. So I'll give a quick demonstration. I don't know how well it's going to come through on the video, but you've got your screen port down the bottom there, which is the white plug, the XH4 pin connector, your battery input there, and then your receiver ports on the side there as well. Servo ports in the top. So you don't need the screen to program this. If you wanted to, you could pull it out of the box, plug your receiver in. It'll automatically find the protocol, and then you've got 10 channels, 1 to 10 on the top there, and it'll route channel 1 from the radio, 2, 3, 4, all the way through to 10. You plug in the screen, you can adjust your gain values, but just by pushing the button on top here, which is a little bit recessed in there, and following a couple of command prompts from an LED, the system will automatically detect which way everything needs to go. And based on all of our previous experience with the Smooth Flight and different models and different setups of weight and model type, we've got ballpark figures for all the gains built into this as well. That's not to say that if you don't plug in the screen, you can't adjust that. And one of the differences between this and our existing Smooth Flight system is, if you've ever used our Smooth Flight system, we've got two different options. We've got scale mode and sports mode. In this system, we've upgraded that so you can actually have a variable slider about how loose or how tight you want the model to feel and how quickly you want the gain to dial back up. And there's a whole bunch of advanced parameters in this product as well. So this will be the new upgraded version.
Yeah, that's really cool. Back at Journal earlier this year, I got the chance to play with both the current Smooth Flight suite of products and the Pro. I was really impressed. Like, I don't know if it was you or your dad that walked me through some of the process, and it seemed surprisingly simple while still feeling pretty powerful. Like you can really do whatever you want, set up things however you want, but at the same time, it feels like very, very quick, very simple to use. You don't have to like read pages and pages of manuals and try to do it like 10 times to get it to work.
Yeah. Again, our design philosophy has always been quick installations. So we boast with, if you've set up one, you can set it up again. Doesn't matter the radio, doesn't matter the complexity. And for 90% of the people out there, 90% of pilots, it should be with a unit like this, as simple as plugging your receivers in, plugging your battery in, plugging your servos in, hitting a button, going right aileron, pull elevator, right rudder, flick your master switch, and the system goes, yep, I'm calibrated, you're good to go. Okay. Now, if you want to take that further and you want to do things like you want to adjust your gains or your model feel, or you want to try and hover a jet, this will still give you the option to do that. But we include the color touch screen for you, so you can adjust those parameters. So if you're a bit more of an advanced flyer or you want to fly something that's a bit more complex, it still has all those advanced features built into it. It's just a matter of plugging the screen in, moving a couple of sliders or doing some adjustments, and then something like that is good to, hover a jet as well.
The other product I thought was interesting to see you guys released was Servos. I'm kind of curious, what was the thinking process behind starting tackling Servos? Because At least I think I'm not the only one, but at least for me, I'm always pretty skeptical when I see some other company um, trying to get started with servos, because even even companies that are supposed to be top of the line in servos don't sometimes fall kind of short, and they're not reliable enough, they're not fast enough, they're not precise enough, and they've been doing it for years and years. Like that has happened with can be with JR servos, with Tava servos. So when a new company comes and tries to tackle that problem, I tend to be a bit like skeptical and a bit fearful to try that myself on an expensive plane. So I'm kind of curious. Was the thinking process behind getting that going with servos and AR?
Yeah. We've had servos since 2015 available, but it's always only been a select range of servos. Where if you go onto our website, you can see that we have, I think, only four types of servos. We've got a high speed, a middle speed, a low speed, high torque, and a mini servo. And they're all designed around the philosophy of we are in the market for larger models, so we want to be able to facilitate the need for those things. A couple of things that made our servos different is we spent a lot of time with a certain company I can't name, who manufactures under license for us. Unfortunately, we can't manufacture our own servos in Australia. It is one product we don't do in Australia just because of the volume and the size and everything. But we spent a lot of time with a manufacturer to make servos how we wanted them, and we didn't take any second best servos. The gear sets always had to be titanium geared. They had to be soft start when soft start was becoming available. And one thing that I really pushed home is servos shouldn't be noisy. I don't know about you, but for me, servos that are noisy, it makes it really difficult to set up and fly. Um, our servos are some of the quietest low power servos you'll probably find on the market. And it took a lot of time and energy to get it that way. Yeah, it was more of a we want to be able to offer this to our customers, um, rather than this is the focal point of our business. But we started off with a range of 7.4 servos, and now we're up to the 8.4S servos, and I think that's been over the last year 8 to 10 years. So we are not a new player in the servo market, but it's just another part of our range that we sort of say, hey, if you want them, they are here. They are good quality. They are part of the AR range, and you can expect a level of quality and satisfaction out of these types of servos.
The other product I thought was pretty interesting, and I got the chance to actually try that at UNL, is the AR smart batteries. I was borrowing some from Rio over there. That's
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool. Can you talk a bit about those?
I can show you. Actually, do I have one here? Yep. I don't know if it'll come up on camera, but that's what you're talking about there.
Mm-hmm.
I'd see if I can. Yeah. So these are this is a 6,000 milliamp receiver pack. It's called an Li Plus Smart Battery. You can charge that up to 8.4 volts, so it'll charge onto the LiPo setting. And we have this available in 6K and 3K, so 3,000 milliamps, 6,000 milliamps. And what makes these unique is the circuit that's built into them. It actually monitors the capacity as you're using it. The philosophy behind it is we have smartphones, we have electric cars, we have phones, we have tablets, we have laptops, all have batteries. And if you look down at the icon, you can see the capacity. So why don't we have that in the RC industry? And after I think it's been 3 years, these took in the development cycle. After 3 years, we were happy with the result where we created a circuit that monitors the capacity of the pack as you're using it. It also has a lot of other features, but one of the main ones is as if you press that button, you'll see that the LEDs will light up there, and that is a capacity of about 90%. Now, if I hold it down for 10 seconds, you'll see that it sort of went off and went back on again. That's now in auto storage mode. So that'll discharge down to say 60%. and then go into a deep sleep mode. So for when it gets really cold up north in the northern hemisphere and you pack your planes away for a few months, you can know that once you charge this back up, you're good to go. The circuit built into this is a very intelligent circuit. It's got self-balancing, so when you charge it up, it'll balance the cells. When you put it into storage mode, it will also balance the cells, and it will calculate the health of the battery over time as well. So let's say 4 or 5 years go by, you flatten this down a few times, and the system inside will actually go, well, hang on a second. When you charge me up, I only went up to 90% after 5 years. So I'm only going to show you 90%. So it's a very intelligent circuit built into this. And the same goes for our 3K system as well. But what makes these so popular and increasing in popularity is they're 8.4 volts like a LiPo, so you're still getting high voltage to your servos. And B, they're actually lighter than a lot of LiPos, believe it or not, by about 15 to 20%. So your 6K, yeah, so you can either do one or two things. You can either have a bigger capacity for the same weight, or for guys who want to fly 3D and they want to keep things extra light, you can save the better part of 100, 150 grams, which doesn't sound like much, but that's roughly the weight of about 2 servos. So it all adds up. So yeah, these have been incredibly popular for us, incredibly popular. And it's always nice to, as soon as you plug them in and turn them on, the LEDs will show up. So if you can see them through your cockpit, you know that you've got, let's say, 80%, you're good to go fly.
Yeah, no, when I was using them again at Neonal, they were really convenient, really handy. It was just like, I don't know, simple to use in comparison to the average LiPo or lithium-ion battery.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's all coming back to that. If we can just make it simple and easy to use for the pilot or the builder, let's do it. And it's a capacity checker built onto the top of a pack. I mean, in simple terms, that's what it is, with extra features, obviously. But it's the implementation of, okay, how do we make this usable? How do we make this easy that you don't have to, oh, hang on, okay, go over to my transmitter kit and take out my battery checker and plug it. Oh, hang on, that's only reading 65%. Just go, well, as soon as you turn your model on, the LEDs will show you exactly the capacity that's in your pack. Oh, okay, cool, I've got 8 LEDs. I can count them if I want to, or I can just have a look. They're color coded. As long as I'm in the green, I'm good to fly. All right, sweet. It's another thing off your mind.
Yeah. I think for me, it's not only just about like making it simpler just out of laziness, but there's also it's one less thing that can go wrong, right? Like if you don't have to take the effort of grabbing the extra device from your case and checking the voltage. One that you might not do it, and it might turn out that you forgot to charge the battery, or you use more capacity than you thought, and now you crash a plane. Versus with this, it's on your face without even trying, right?
Yeah, I don't know how many countless stories I've heard. Luckily, I've never done this, but of how many people is I was charging my batteries last night and I got distracted because the alarm went off on the oven, and I came back and I forgot about it. I came back the next day and went, oh, I've charged my batteries. So I've disconnected, I've gone out for a fly, and they had 30% in them. And I lost the plane. I've heard that probably 150 times in our travels.
Mm-hmm.
Again, luckily I've never had the experience. But by upgrading to something like this, or the implementation of something like this, takes out that guesswork of, oh, did I charge my batteries? Oh, hang on a second. Oh, I don't know. You literally either push a button or you just turn your model on and it'll show you. And the intelligence is built into the packs where it'll self-balance those packs as well. So no longer do you have to go, oh, hang on, I didn't connect the balance lead, did I? Oh, okay. And it's just, again, it's just another thing off your mind.
Yep, no, it's pretty cool. Well, I don't think we have time to go through every single product because you guys have like a very big product line these days. But yeah, the couple of things I've tried, a couple of things I've seen, they've been really, really cool. Like another super simple thing, but I was also very impressed is the what's the name? The Proline servo cables.
Yep.
I've used that in some of my planes, and it's surprisingly nice. I know it sounds kind of silly because a lot of people just can get their own cable and make their own connectors. But if you see one of these, they are really, really well done. Like the level of quality is really up there.
No, thank you. Yeah, that's another one that came out of necessity. We have two different ranges in the Pro line. Actually, we have what we call the Pro line range, and they are guaranteed 28 WG servo wires. They're high temp silicon, so they're good for 200 degrees, and they're all pre-braided in your PET braid. So when you pull them out of the bag, they actually come looking like that. So they've got the braid, they've got the glue-lined heat shrink on it. This is obviously off our smart battery, but imagine exactly the same thing. And the reason those came about was because we were building models and iMac models or giant scale models or turbine models, and Dad said to me when we were building together, he said, "I don't want to crimp cables anymore. There's got to be a way of doing this where you don't have to crimp your own cables." And we looked around, and the only thing we saw were the standard, 150, 300, 600, 900 standard cables. And we went, there's got to be a better way. So we came up with the idea. In fact, he came up with the idea where what if we had a cable range where everything comes in, we say 100 mil increments. So you're starting at 100, going up 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, all the way up to, I think it's 1300 in length. I'm not sure what that is in inches. I'm not that good at the conversion. And then from there, 13, 15, 17, 19, 2.1 meter, which is a fairly long run if you're running, a giant scale glider. They are all machine crimped, so it's not hand crimping anymore. That's how they come out of the packet. They're all built with gold-plated pins. And they're all pre-braided, so you can know that you run that cable anywhere you want, and the braid's going to protect it. Doesn't matter if it's running against carbon fiber or metal or some other sharp surface. We then expanded on that because we got asked so much for it on our range of aerospace wire, which is, is the builder's wire. So it's a lot thinner, but that's our aerospace wire there. And since bringing this range out, I actually fell back in love with crimping wires, believe it or not. Just because having the right type of wire makes a big difference. So this is 28 WG wire, but it is a lot thinner, which means it can fit into a standard servo housing. That's also high temp wire, so that's Teflon, PTFE Teflon wire, 200 degrees, and because of the sheath, it's actually abrasion resistance as well. So this, even though most people want to put this stuff in PTE braiding, you don't have to with our wire as well. That's if you want to build a little bit lighter models or you want to make your own cables, that's the stuff for you. Or our existing Proline range where if you've just bought a model for the weekend and you want to get it running by Monday, you literally buy, two at 600, two at 1200, maybe four at 200 mil. They turn up, you unpull them out of a packet, you connect up the lengths, you're good to go. So two different philosophies there.
Pretty useful for also building airplanes at events like Jonel.
Yes, very much so. We sell out of those cables at Jonel. People go, I've just bought a new plane. Oh, I need 4 of these and 3 of those. And do you have mail to mail? Yeah, we've got mail to mail ones as well. They've become hugely popular for us, hugely popular. Another one we add, it's not in the Proline range per se, but it's part of our one-click range, is these things. And the only reason I'm showing it is because I have it here. So this is a wing connector or a fuselage connector. It's 14 pin, and we sell a lot of these to turbine guys, believe it or not, because you've got, it already comes pre-machine crimped. Again, this is our silicon wire, so it's nice and flexible, and it's genuine 28 WG. But guys love it because they go, oh, I've got a turbine, okay, I'm running 1 flap servo, 1 aileron servo, I need to run brakes, I need to run gear, okay, that's that. Oh, cool, I've got a light in there as well. And they plug their light straight in. And you know that what we actually do with these is we supply a little plate that mounts onto the side of the fuse. So that is all you see on the side. And when you want to connect up your wing, you just go like that, slide it through. Not a new product, but again, something we sell a lot of because it just finds that niche in the market. Guys are loving these things.
Yeah, now those one-click connectors are pretty. I really like that style of setup of those kind of planes. I don't want to be messing with 3 wires for every wing and
exactly. How many times, and again, this is where this started. Just to go into background, how many times did you connect up your wing connectors and you had, 2 or 3 servo connectors there, and you go to fly and your flap becomes your aileron, you go pull your wing back off, change your connectors around. It's little things like that where these just save you so much time, energy, effort, and they just make flying and setup so much more fun. Because ultimately, I I believe that when you're an RC pilot, the goal is to go out to the field and have fun.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's either go out to the field, socialize with like-minded people, go out to the field and fly, or go and build something. But you're always looking for that fun. You're always looking for that enjoyment. And if we can facilitate that with little products like this or like this, then hey, I think we're on the right track.
Yep. No, agreed. Last thing you want is going to the field and having to spend there like half of the day just dealing with some problem because it didn't charge the battery or because you made a mistake with the cable connection, it was the wrong one.
Yep, yep. Or you get to the field and it's your new build and you've done all your cabling and you go to move one of your ailerons and one of your ailerons doesn't move and you go, why? And you trace the cable and one of your crimps is just so slightly popped out and you just go, "Argh." you
Yeah.
know, it's again, it's those little frustrations.
Well, what's next for Advanced Radio? You guys have a pretty solid product line, a lot of products, really good quality. I think more and more people all over the world are using your products. I think you guys have been working with different distributors, right? Not just in Australia, but I know that here in the US, it's fairly easy to get AR products. What's next for the company?
We're looking at expanding our range a little bit more. I can't give too many details, but maturing and expanding our range and making things more accessible to customers, I think is where we should be headed or where we are headed. We have a good base that I see. So we've got a lot of products which are established in the market. We've got a brand and a name out there. I think it's in the next year or so, you'll see that we're building on top of that. I can't let too much go at the moment, but we do have some new and exciting stuff coming.
And that sometimes people or some people tend to have a very pessimistic view about the hobby, especially since drones became a thing. It feels like some people kind of move towards that side of things. Somebody like you that have been in the hobby for a long time, not just as a pilot or as a builder, but also in the business of RC, and you've traveled a lot all over the world. Kind of curious to hear your general thoughts about the direction the hobby is like moving. Like, do you feel optimistic? Do you feel like the hobby is still like well and alive?
Oh,
What do you think?
absolutely. Absolutely. The more I travel around the world and see different events and see especially new events and meet new people, I'm starting to see a shift in the demographic for the RC modeler. Maybe it's just me, but growing up with the hobby, it was always there was very few um, younger people in the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And not saying that I'm getting to the older side, although we are all getting older, I'm starting to see a growth of younger people in the hobby, which is always good to see. And it's something that, you know, should be fostered more because that's the lifeblood of the hobby. I think planes and the RC hobby and planes in specifics have seen a huge change back when I was young and looking at getting into the hobby, or back when we were getting into the hobby, kits were just starting to become ARF, and there was a lot of complexities and a lot of things that weren't quite ARF in there. Um, Now cut, 15 years later, and you can pull a model out of a box, and let's say it's a foam model as your first trainer, and you can, without too much hassle, if you're generally savvy with tools, you can put something together. And the technology is advancing now where it's built into those models for beginner pilots where the attrition rate is a lot lower. So people are losing less models because they've got gyros built into them, they've got auto wing leveling, they've got a bar taking off and landing themselves. If you're flying them at least with someone next to you who's got some sort of experience, you should have a relatively good first and second and third experience. Gone are the days where you put 3 or 4 weeks into building a model, even if it was a trainer, mixing your own nitro fuel and going out to the field, and you had a minute and a half long flight, and then something happened and you ended up taking it back to the drawing board and gluing it all back together. I mean, with the models that we have today, I think that it's a good situation for new blood to come into the industry, and I'm starting to see that. We're starting to see a lot of younger pilots join the industry, and I think, bar what a lot of people say, I think that there is still a lot of growth in the RC world, and I do think that it will be around for years to come.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I think that's my general take too. I'm really happy that basically the barrier of entry in RC has gone down quite a bit, which is awesome. Like as you said, you don't have to spend a ton of money, a ton of time with a good amount of expertise and ask for a ton of help just to try to get something flying. And if you crash it, it's big a step back, right? And nobody likes to crash, but especially like 15, 20 years ago, a crash was even more painful because it takes a long time to get back in the air.
Yep.
I know that people like to hate on things like foam planes or ARFs or gyros, but yeah, if you come new and you can get a plane that is pretty much ready to go, that has some help, so that if you get disoriented, you can just click a button and it like levels and waits for you, and like those type of things. Sure, like people that have been flying for years don't care about that, but for somebody new, that's a lifesaver. So
Yeah. I think the industry has changed from more of a builder's mentality, and it's starting to change, or it is changing, from a builder's mentality where you went down to your local model shop, you bought your balsa sticks, you got the plan, you pinned it out on a bench, and then you laid it all out and glued it all together. And if it flew, awesome, and if it didn't, okay, bugger. To more of a pilot's mentality where you're right, you can buy a ready-made kit even with the radio these days, for like $200, 150, $200, which is still a lot of money, but it's not crazy. But the lifetime of that particular model is a lot higher because you've got all those safety things built into it. That's not to say that you'll stay there and you won't, progress up further to, 3D and giant scale and huge gliders or wherever you find your crowd or your niche. But your barrier for entry has definitely gotten lower. And I think the attrition rate for models has also gotten lower with those things as well.
Yeah, and on the other end of the spectrum, you have like the top of the line 3D extreme aerobatic planes. They are amazingly precise, agile, strong. Like when I was flying 3D and kind of extreme aerobatics 15 years ago, like you would be breaking planes the way we fly them right now. Or with jets, like the technology improvements on turbines, on the airframes, have like crazy 3D thrust vectoring jets, that like I think technology has been improving. If you're on the other end of the spectrum when you just want the very best flying capabilities, the very best engines, airframes, we have like pretty cool stuff available to us right now.
Oh yeah, and the reliability of it all has come up as well. Models have become, as you said, more robust, but also more reliable. The production, of those particular models has become more strict and regimented. So yes, they can handle higher Gs, but you also know that after 3 or 4 years, the model is still going to be in roughly the same state as it was when you first took it off. Turbines, I mean, I think they've just released a G5 turbine which starts in under 10 seconds.
Almost immediately.
Yeah. Instead of having to get the old propane canister out there, and then you get a flame out and you get a wet start. Like the reliability of all the different components has increased probably 10 to 15 fold, and that's just taking the industry and the hobby up to the next level, I think, as well.
Yeah. Well, cool. I don't want to take more of your time, Brendan. I really appreciate you taking the time. And yeah, it's again, I'm a big fan of all the work that you, your dad, the company have been doing. Keep it up. I'm really looking forward to seeing the new Smooth Flight and any other future products that you guys come up with.
Oh, thank you very much for organizing this, and thank you for your time. It's been great to have a chat with you, and yeah, thank you for doing Skybound RC as well. It's a great eye opener for people all around the world.
Yeah, thank you. Well, hopefully I get to see you maybe, I don't know, probably next year, Jonal.
Yeah, you gonna make it over to Jet Power this year?
It's a bit far for me. I think it's a bit
Australia.
far for you. It's a bit far for you. That's right. No, not this year. Maybe next year.
Yeah, that's
With the
another
little
eye opener.
kids, those trips are just hard.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. I understand. Yeah. All right.
But are you guys going?
It's on the cards. Yeah, yeah. We booked a booth, so we'll
That looks like a lot of fun.
yeah, yeah. It's a different show if you've never been to that one. It's like how Joe Now is a pilots event, and Western Park is sort of a good public and family feeling event.
Mhm.
Jet Power is a trade show event.
Mhm.
So it's massive trade show tent, and it's all demonstration flying. So if you want to turn up with your radio and your model and you want to go fly, probably not the event for you. But if you just want to
Mhm.
see what the latest and greatest is in the industry, definitely get there.
Yeah, someday.
Someday. Yeah. Once you go once, you go, I gotta go back. I gotta go back again.
It looks really cool. From the videos I've seen, it looks really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's definitely an awesome event. And I think it gets bigger and bigger every year. Talking to the organizer, I think the tent got another 20 meters longer this year, or 25, 30
Wow.
meters longer.
It's gonna be a lot of vendors.
Yeah, yeah. It's a first come, first serve type place. So get your applications in quick. But yeah, it's definitely going to be an awesome event.
Cool. Well, have a lot of fun there.
Ah, thanks. Cheers.